Hello there, welcome to our show. My name is Doshima Dapoyewole and I'm the founder of the Early Birth Foundation. It's my pleasure to present the 6-part series podcast, My Neonatal Story. This show is our contribution to celebrations for World Prematurity Day 2021. Please share with your friends and family, leave us a comment, and follow us on Instagram at EBFNIG. Up next, I'll introduce today's guest. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Ajibola, for joining us today on My Neonatal Story. Well, in this case, you had twins. So tell us about your children, how old they are now, and where they were born.
Hi, my name is Ajibola. Everyone calls me Jibbs. So I have 3 boys. Okay, fantastic. So that's one of the twins introducing his continence coloring. My first 2 are twins.
Okay.
They were born at 31 weeks and 5 days.
Okay.
In England at St. Mary's Hospital. And then so they're currently 5 years old, and then I have a 3-year-old. So they were born in June 2016, and their little brother was born in November 2017. Now their due date was August 2016, so they came quite early in June. Yeah, so
they're 5 now. I'm sure life now is very different from how it was in like the first couple of weeks when they were just born. Sometimes with twins, people always say they may come early, but what was your pregnancy like? Did you have any indication that you're going to have the twins early, or did it just happen out of the blue?
So it was very smooth up until 24 weeks.
Okay.
So my gynecologist had told me in advance that there was something called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. And so that up until 24 weeks to just be aware of it. So I had my regular scans. There was nothing, everything was fine. However, when I then went for my 24-week scan, they said that I had something called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. And for those who don't know, it's when sort of like, it's almost like having conjoined twins, except it's the blood vessels that are conjoined. So one twin is either getting too much blood or too little blood. So it has obviously side effects, whether it's like too much on the heart of the twin that's getting too much, the one that's getting too little, it affects the growth of the child. So in my case, one of the twins was getting too much and the other was getting very little, if nothing at all. Twin 2 wasn't getting enough blood or oxygen to his brain.
Okay.
So that was a problem. So they advised me about the risk of that, about the risk of cerebral palsy, the risk of being brain dead as a result.
Oh, wow.
I was actually advised at that time to terminate.
No way.
Well, to one of them. So it was a case of, well, this one is affecting the other one. So just if they cut the blood vessel, so the conjoined blood vessel. So it was a case of like when the blood is flowing, because it was conjoined, at the conjoined bits, it was causing a reverse flow of blood. So it was like it was pushing it back. So that second twin wasn't getting blood or oxygen to the brain. So I was advised for them to have a procedure to cut off the bits that was conjoined. However, the risk of that was that I would lose one twin or possibly both. So we had a scan to see how conjoined the vessels were. And literally what the doctor said when he saw it was, what the hell am I gonna cut? Because for him, he said it was so thick. The extent of how conjoined it was so thick that he literally could not do anything about it.
Wow.
So that was very frustrating for him, because he was a really good doctor, a really good surgeon, and he felt he specialized in fetal medicine, and he had come up with this procedure. It was like a laser surgery thing where they could separate twins with twin to twin transfusions. So that was hard for him to realize that he could do about it. So even before he did the scan, I had said that I didn't want to choose between the twins. I wanted to carry on with the pregnancy and just see how it panned out. And my faith for me was quite important in this journey. So when I received that, so there's something that you do in legal, and the client gives, says what they want to do about it, and then you kind of agree next steps. So like the doctor gave me their report, and they said it would be impossible to separate the twins. They advised me of the risk of sudden death, and they didn't feel that they would even make it to 28 weeks. At this time, I was only 24 weeks pregnant. And so I put below that, there was a scripture that I held on to, which was Luke 1 verse 37, which said, "For with God, nothing shall be impossible." So I put below the doctor's report. I have read the doctor's report. I have read God's report. And I choose to believe God's report. So my husband and I really just held on to that word, and our faith helped us through such a difficult period. I was being scanned like every 2 days. It was quite very invasive, and overwhelming, but we just kept going. At that point, I just moved into like survival mode and just held on to my faith. I didn't really share much with family and friends, because it's one of those things where when you're going through it, you just want to keep it together and just see how it pans out, so you don't want to get everyone else overly worked up or just worrying about you. So it really tightened my husband and I's bond, and it was just something that we shared together. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I mean, there's just so much to unpack, because from hearing, about twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, and then, the statistics and the reports that the doctors were giving you, and knowing that you actually made it up to 31 weeks. I mean, those that's like, 7 to 8 weeks after they've given you this bombshell of
100%.
I mean, that is amazing. And now the kids are 5 years old. So like, I'm just like, wow, there's literally nothing that God cannot do. Like,
literally. So for me, when I look at those boys, they're just a living testimony. Like every time I see them, I just can't believe it, because literally they told me that they wouldn't make it, and that even if they did, at least one would be brain dead.
Oh, wow.
So that was the reality that they presented to me. I remember even at the point when I had to have an emergency C-section. So they had said that I couldn't have a normal delivery because of the twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. So they had booked me in for a C-section. But the day that I had the emergency C-section, my doctor actually just panicked. I had been trying to say, can I wait till 32 weeks? I just wanted to get to 32 weeks, because I was told that, 32 weeks, their lungs would be more developed. So I was like, okay, let's try to do it. And he had another patient who had the same thing, and that person had gone into labor. They had to have an emergency C-section, and I think they lost one of them or something. So he panicked, and he was like, look, no, you've got to have the twins today. It was on my birthday, so I wasn't too happy about that, because I didn't really want to share my birthday. I was trying to get them to my husband's birthday, which was going to be, then they would be 32 weeks. Yeah, so when I told him, I was like, yeah, okay, fine, we're going to do this. And I'm so excited. And I was like, look, don't be excited, because we just don't know what we're going to find. We just don't know how it'll pan out. And that was kind of like heart-wrenching for me, because this doctor was one of the positive ones, so, for him to be saying that, I was like, oh, wow. But yeah, when they then came out, I had never seen kids that size. I mean, my knowledge of preterm babies, like, I guess growing up in Nigeria, it had kind of been not a taboo, but like just often heard it say, why are you acting like a premature child or something, like,
I
I
know.
think that they had this
Like, you
notion
only ever
that,
heard it as like an insult on the playground in school, but
yes, it was like an
nobody ever told
insult,
you
like,
anything.
exactly. So for me, it was like, I don't hear it as, oh, like in Yoruba, because I'm Yoruba, this whole kilodeton should be premature. Like, why are you acting like a premature child? So I had never seen one. I had never read about what, so I mean, I had read about it because of, what I was going through, but not in detail, not that, so you hear that, yes, their lungs need to develop, but I just had no idea. I didn't know that I wouldn't even be allowed to hold my babies. I didn't know that, like, one came with, like, was it like a CPAP thing, just the mask. I just was like, wow, they're so fragile, they're so little, so that was heart-wrenching, like, not to be able to, so nothing prepared me for that. And that's why I'm literally so glad that you're doing what you're doing, because I think people need to be aware, people need to be prepared the same way they prepare people for labor. They should prepare people who are having preterm babies, knowing what to expect. The fact that you cannot even breastfeed, because the baby's mouth is too small to even suck, or to take the size of a nipple, things like that. Like, I had no idea what to expect. And I think that was the hardest bit for me, leaving my babies in NICU, recovering from a C-section. I didn't even remember the pain as much as just wanting your babies to be okay, and having to leave them behind to go to your room. Then when I had to be discharged and to go home, leaving your babies behind in hospital, hearing them cry, but you have to go, so that was heart-wrenching. But like I said, I just moved into survival mode, and my faith helped, like, just, kept pumping as much milk, delivering milk at 2 a.m., having cab drivers come, family members come to deliver milk, because I was pumping around the clock for 2 babies, not just one, so that was tough. But God was my anchor, really, and just helped me through. And my husband was so supportive. So that helped. Prayer helped, just praying. There was something that I used to do. I remember when they were in NICU, how I got through it was just, declaring the word of God over them. Like, I remember I had their Hebrew names, so just praying for Daniel. I had Samuel, Daniel. I just said, you have the spirit of excellence. I just used to, like, declare the word of God over them.
Wow. I mean, I've seen pictures of your kids and you talk about them, but honestly, they've been like reborn in my mind. And I think the thing that I always emphasize the most, or I realize the most about, preterm babies or babies who have, spent some time in NICU is just how resilient they are. Because when you hear some of these stories, you just think like, wow, this tiny baby went through all of this and now they're like jumping over the couch, they're trying to get into muddy puddles, and just all sorts. So, I mean, it's,
yeah, 100%. And one of the things that stood out for me, I remember one of the nurses in NICU, when I was just looking and I was worried because one of them was not doing as well as the other. That was the one that was getting a lot of blood. He wasn't doing as much as the second twin. She said to me, look, the fact that they made it out, they're miracle babies. Don't you ever forget that. They're survivors, they're fighters. So don't worry, they'll be fine. The fact that they're out already in itself is a miracle. And that was really so comforting for me. That helped me because it was like, it's true. God has already done the hardest bit, because
exactly
these are kids that they said they won't even make it. Do you understand? Yes. And I remember the doctor saying to me, like, for as long as they're in there, it's so unpredictable, but once they're out, there's we can do. We can give them what they need. We can give them, so yeah. And I'm so grateful for that, basically. Just so that really encouraged me, because being in NICU is so tough. And for me, I think what I would say to parents that have children in NICU is like, keep the faith. Don't think about the negative side. I know it's very hard when you're in something not to think about the negative part, but the fact that they've made it out, they're miracles already.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so just be positive, keep the faith, hold on, and they will be fine. Like unfortunately, there was another parent who lost one of her twins while we were in NICU.
Oh, wow.
She went home early and she ended up losing one of her twins. But the fact is that even at that, one still just has to keep that positive attitude, because I believe that kids feed off your energy as well. Like, yeah, you just have to keep going.
Exactly.
And be strong for them, because they're fighting. So you have to be strong for them as well.
You have to be strong. You definitely do. I like the story you shared about the nurse, and the words of encouragement that, she offered to you. Is there anyone else on the that was staff at the NICU, like the nurses or the doctors, that you remembered for having sort of like just that extra empathy? Because I find that a lot of times parents are confused, and the staff don't really take the time to just slow down and explain things to you. Or is there like medical staff that you're like, I wish they took a different approach, or, I wish they explained this to me in a different way, to make things easier?
I mean, well, my kids were in NICU at St. Mary's. I found that the staff there were amazing. They were excellent. They would just always encourage, mommy, don't worry, your kids will be fine. Your babies will be fine. They were very encouraging. But at some point, when they started to get better, because I think St. Mary's is like a level 3 or something. They have levels.
Yeah.
So once they started to get better, it was now an issue, because it was like, okay, they had to be transferred to a hospital closer to home.
Yep.
Which didn't require as much attention.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my goodness, no, I want them here. I want them to have the best. I don't want them transferred. So that was particularly heart-wrenching for me. I think that was the only time I felt like I didn't feel as much empathy, because for them was like, yeah, they need to be transferred. We need to put sicker kids here. And it was like, but my child too needs more, But for them, it was like, no, they're doing fine. They're breathing, they're breathing better. So they just, their lungs are developing well, So it was like, okay. So that was, I think, the only time I felt like there could have been more empathy and just more, I guess maybe they could have been more reassuring. But by the time I got to the second hospital, which was the Whittington Hospital, I realized that it was just as good a hospital, and I liked the care that I got. It wasn't as big as St. Mary's, because St. Mary's is a teaching hospital, but the level of care was amazing. And so, yeah, I guess it was just my own personal fears. I mean, thinking, oh my gosh, would they not get as much care? But I realized that, no, even there, they got the care that they needed, So, yeah, it was the right choice to transfer them. And it meant less travel time for me as a mom. So I was less tired as well. Yeah. So it made sense. It's just that they could have explained it better, I guess.
Yeah. Were you able to take the twins home on like the same day when they, finally got the all clear that, they're well enough to go home now?
So no, I wasn't actually. So that was another experience for me. Another, like, not, I wouldn't say life-changing experience, but another moment that stuck with me was one of them, the second twin, the one that was getting less blood. He's just such a fighter. He was ready to go home. And then I was like, no, they're twins. I don't want to separate them.
Yeah.
Can he stay till the other one is ready? And a particular nurse, I was blessed with amazing nurses. God bless nurses. She was like, Mom, I know that you want to keep him here, but like, he's ready to go. And that even though they're twins, each child is unique. Each child is different. You can't hold him back.
Yeah.
Because his brother is not ready. He's ready. And for every day you keep him here, there's a risk of infection, so like, he's ready. Don't hold him back because of his brother. And that stuck with me. Like, I raised my twins though they have a lot of similarities, they're also very different. So I keep saying, you don't like this food, that's fine, but your brother likes it. So that's something that helped me to treat them as individuals, because with twins, they like to do stuff together. So you have to be careful that one doesn't overshadow the other, and that their individual behaviors, attitudes, likes and dislikes is able to shine, and not just always keep tagging them together, although I wear the same things for them. One of them doesn't really like, he started saying, no, I don't want to wear this shirt. I don't like long sleeve, and I'm like, okay, that's okay, because you're an individual. You don't have to wear the same thing as your brother, but that's my preference, dressing them alike. But sometimes he'll say no, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I think that without that word from that lady, then I would have just kept being like, no, just do this together, just do that, so yeah.
Oh, amazing. And sort of when they now came home, was there, what was their care like? Were you able to sort of easily ease back into, the routine of having the baby or having two babies at home? Or is there anything that, you still needed to watch out for and be careful?
Yeah, so one of them, the one that came home early, he had something called hypothyroidism. Okay. So he had to be on medication, daily levothyroxine. Okay. So I had to be careful with administering the medication and just to keep an eye on that. So he came home, I think 2.5 weeks before his brother. Can you imagine?
Wow.
I know. So I still had to look after that baby and then go all the time to the hospital to check up on the other one.
On his brother, wow.
Yeah, so I would always take him to see his brother so they could bond. But I had support. I had my mother-in-law, I had my mom, I had my sisters, my husband. So it was okay leaving him, because I would be with him all night, most of the day, then go to be with his brother, take milk, pump, things like that. So, yeah, they just always used to tell you about cot death, be careful, don't put them face down, just so many things. And yeah. I think it made me a bit paranoid and so careful. Yeah. So I think that's the only thing I would say, don't be too paranoid or too careful, because I'm so careful washing hands all the time. Oh, don't touch this, don't do this, because you're so traumatized really by the NICU process, because in NICU they're so careful and everything. So you take that home and it's not realistic. But I said, oh, you have to wash your hands before you come in the room, you have to do this. So everyone probably thought I was a bit anal. They probably still think so, but I call it being intentional. But yeah, so I was just very that mom.
It's actually funny when COVID hit, I was like, wow, my husband is just falling back into old routines, because he literally ordered the same sanitizers that they had in the NICU at home. And I remember we had one by the door, one by the kitchen, one by the crib, one in the living room. And he's like, no, you have to sanitize. We have to keep the same protocols. And at a point, I just had to tell him, look, this house is not a hospital. I can't keep up the safety and hygiene protocols. This boy is fine, So that's just really funny, because the first couple of weeks you're like, how are we going to take him from this high-tech environment and we should just keep him in the living room? We should just keep him in the crib. What do people need? So
exactly. Yeah, it's just very I think
funny about the
traumatizes you. Yeah, 100%. It makes you really super careful. And when you now go to your natural environment, or when you're now actually surrounded by family, you look weird because it's not a realistic environment,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It absolutely is. I really love how you took care of yourself in the midst of all of this. You seemed very open to support from your family, and you held on to, your faith as well as an anchor, which is really, really important. Was there anything else you did to sort of take care of yourself mentally and, just also include your husband in the process and carry him along with things?
I think for me it was just meeting up with friends and just having lunch, having dinner. For me, it still remains an escape, just eating good food.
Mm-hmm.
And just, it was one of the nurses that also explained that to me, rest, this time that they're in our care, use that time to rest because you're going to need it. You're not going to be able to sleep when you have two screaming babies. So that helps, like, but I feel like if I were going to tell another NICU mom now, I'd say rest more because I don't think I rested enough. I think I was still like paranoid, pumping, doing this, but just rest. Use that time to heal if you've had a C-section, or just to rest if you've not had a C-section. Just use that time to prepare yourself for the babies coming home, as opposed to worrying about them. I know it's easier said than done because nobody wants to leave their kids behind in a hospital, but just use that as self-care. Go to the spa, get a hammam, Turkish body scrub, just rest.
Just scrub it all away and rest. My last question for you, Jibbs, is going to be, you're the first NICU mom I'm speaking to that has gone on to have, a second baby or another child. So you're like a unicorn, So what was your second pregnancy like, knowing that you had the NICU experience for your first? Were you anxious, or, were you able to enjoy your pregnancy? Because I think that's one of the things NICU moms that are also first-time moms worry about, is like, oh, what is the second time going to be like?
Yeah, so my second pregnancy was a surprise. It was a pleasant, at the time, my twins were just 7 months old. And I was completely surprised. I remember when I did the test, I wasn't feeling fine. My sister is a doctor, and anytime we says do a pregnancy test just in case. Then I laughed about it. I was like, ha 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 ha. I was like, okay, so buy me the malaria meds and then a pregnancy test too. But I was like, when I did the test, I didn't even tell her, because when I did the test, I was so scared. I just kept saying, Jesus is Lord. I was so like, oh my goodness, but after the initial shock, I was excited, and it was a very smooth pregnancy, completely different. I guess because it was a singleton, it was a lot easier. And he was full term. I think he was like 39 weeks and almost 40 weeks, basically. Yeah, so it was very smooth. It was a very smooth pregnancy, no issues at all. It was just a totally different experience. And I even tried to have a natural delivery with him, which I think that's what they call a VBAC or something. But because he had come so close to when the twins were born, it just didn't work out. And I ended up having another emergency C-section, but I went into labor with him. And but it just wasn't progressing, and I ended up having a C-section. It was nice. And I guess because I had 2 boys initially, having a third boy was just easy because I could like share clothes, share everything. It was just so much easier with the second pregnancy than the twins. Yeah, it was one baby to look after. But definitely, I think that having 2 kids, having that third child takes it up a notch. So it was a bit more overwhelming parenting 3 kids over 2. I'd say that my life changed. You have to get like a mommy car. You can't have a normal car anymore. It just was a different experience, basically. Yeah, and he was more like demanding. Like, he was breastfed. He only wanted breast milk. He was just a bit of a prince, really, from birth, whereas the twins didn't have that option. Theirs was, everything was routine, because there were 2 of them. I didn't have that luxury of overfeeding one or sleeping with one, or just, it was like clockwork with the twins. But he was a little prince, let's just say that. I'm trying not to use the word diva, but little prince. Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to make mommy work for this one.
Yes, exactly. And I think he knew it from the beginning. It was like, this is my mommy. And even like, trying to bully his older brothers, and just, he was just a prince from day one. When he would cry, his own cry was so loud. Everything, the twins were just so soft. This guy was screaming and just a special boy from the onset.
The time NICU babies, spend in the hospital, I feel like it makes them independent quickly and like easy to manage. My son he's very easy. He goes when he's ready to go to bed, he goes to bed. Like he doesn't need anybody to rock him or carry him. He's very independent. So I always feel like by the time I have a second kid, like, that one is the one that's going to show me Pepe, like this motherhood, part of motherhood that you think you just
yeah, 100%. Because in NICU, they train them for you. It's like they go through sleep training, everything. So it was like I was getting a nice sleep trained baby. They would come, there was no rocking. And then when I got home, I didn't let anybody rock them and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I continued the NICU routine because I was like, you're not going to spoil the work they did for me, please. With this, my baby, I had to do all of that sleep training and everything. Yeah. So that was like a bit more challenging, but yeah. 100%. I think NICU babies, and they're a lot stronger because I think also while they're in NICU, they pump them up with so many vitamins, and these kids, they are just phenomenal. They really are troopers, Yeah.
They really are troopers. They really are troopers. Thank you so much, Jibbs, for sharing your story. Any final words for mommy or daddy whose kids will be listening to this? What are like the most important things you'd like to say?
I think I would just like to say, first of all, well done. It's really a tough experience. It's really a traumatic experience. But keep the faith. Don't give up. Never give up. No matter what negative reports you get, don't give up. Just hold on to your faith. Hold on to God. Pray through it. Speak positive words. Declare the word of God over your children. Get as much support as you need. If you need a day to cry, do that. If you need a day at the spa, do that. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. It's a tough and traumatic process, but don't give up. Keep the faith. And the fact that they're out, like that nurse told me, they're already miracles. So just hold on. Just keep holding on. And by God's grace, you'll be victorious. And just keep the faith. Keep praying and hang in there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the platform. Well done for what you're doing, because so many people need to hear about preterm babies. People need to be encouraged. There's nothing wrong with people who have preterm babies. There's nothing wrong with preterm babies. It's just their unique circumstance, and they're miracles. They're miracle babies. And I say they're so eager to come into the world because they're so special, and they're special gifts from God. And even when some of them are born with certain issues, they tend to outgrow them. My son was completely healed of his hypothyroidism.
Oh.
And they had told me that, he could outgrow it. Mm-hmm. He may not, and I kept on praying and kept giving him the meds. And by age 3, the meds, they started reducing the medication. By age 4, he was totally off his meds, and he's 5 years old, totally off the meds. So just keep the faith. Do whatever you need to do. If it's meds, do the meds plus prayer. That's what I always believe, like medical advancement plus prayer works wonders.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm just really glad to, hear mom stories and not feel alone. When you're in NICU, like, you're only hearing stories about, I had my labor, I had my delivery, me and my baby went home in the evening. I was like, this is not my, this wasn't how it went for me.
This is not my reality.
Not my reality.
Exactly.
It's not my reality. So I think curating these stories is really, really important. And I'm really, really grateful to have you on board.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor to be on here and to encourage other NICU moms, and just to be that voice for preterm babies, to say they are special and amazing, and what a blessing. to be a mom to preterm babies and to watch them grow. By age 5, everything had self-corrected for us, and they've met all their milestones and just, yeah, they're doing great, thank God.
Oh, amazing.
So thank you for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You've just listened to My Neonatal Story, an Early Birth Foundation podcast. Please follow our Instagram page for free resources and subscribe to our show on iTunes and Google Play to make sure you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for tuning in today.